Because if you do that, there will be no end to this.
But for people who would want to come here and still want to practice their religion, who maybe want to build a mosque right over there.
I don't have no problem building a mosque. They can build all the mosques they want, or temples, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if they ask me not to eat pork, there's a problem. If they ask me not to have a Christmas tree, there's a problem, you know. If they ask me not to have Santa Claus, by the way, there's a problem. I don't believe in Santa Claus, you know, but I like it. And it's been that way for the last 400 years in here. So don't try us to change.
Yeah. Do you think that immigrants would impose their way of life on you if they were to live here?
One of these days, it will come.
Yeah.
Just read their books.
But why do you think that? You're in the majority.
For now. For how long?
Let's admit it, we all have our limits, but Hérouville chose to make theirs public. This uncomfortable conversation makes me think that's what they need, some comfort and some confidence. Maybe the town's motto says it all, Carpe Diem. The complete quote is actually seize the day, trusting little in the future. Mark Kelly, CBC News, Hérouville, Quebec.
In late November, the Bouchard-Taylor Commission wrapped up its public hearings. It will present its report to the Quebec government in March of next year. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. It's the greatest of the Great Lakes, but water levels have been dropping dramatically.
Well, normally you'd be up to your waist here in water right now.
How could it happen that fast? It's almost as if somebody pulled a plug from a drain and down went your water.
On News and Review today, the mystery of Lake Superior. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. Native people call it Gitchagami, or big water, but these days something is happening to Lake Superior. A lot of that water is disappearing, and nobody is quite sure where it's going. The CBC's Margot McDermott set out to investigate.
Northern legends call it the Big Sea. Lake Superior, the greatest of all the Great Lakes. The largest freshwater lake in the world. The stories of Superior are of huge storms and past shipwrecks. A forbidding lake so deep, it never gives up its dead. But there's a new story emerging about this fierce lake diminished, its water ebbing away, disappearing at an alarming rate. Superior's water is at an all-time low, the lowest level ever recorded at this time of year. Shores that are used to crashing waves are almost unrecognizable. Exposed, naked, muddy. Trillions of liters of water have simply vanished. Those who know and love the lake are wondering where the water went. Joni and Gary McGuffin have paddled around Lake Superior's entire 3,000-kilometer shore and know more about its nooks and crannies than most people.
Let's go in here a little ways.
They're renowned adventure writers and photographers who are spending their lives capturing the lake's many moods. They've settled on the shores of Superior, just north of Sault Ste. Marie, raising their daughter, Sela, to share their love of the outdoors.
Let's go in here a little ways, Joni. Look at those quartz veins.
We've never seen this before.
The McGuffins have watched the water levels drop with a mixture of fascination and fear.
So you see, this was all underwater. You can really see the difference in water levels. I mean, that's where it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all the natural lichens from here down.
Oh yes, look at those spots there. You know, it's, well, 2 feet down the rock, you know, so. But now I start turning my head and I look out across the horizon and I start seeing that slice of water, that is how much water has left the lake this year. And it just becomes almost incomprehensible to imagine that much fresh water.
Having paddled around the lake, that's a lot of water. How can we lose so much water so quickly?
To give you an idea of just how much water we're talking about, every Canadian uses about 350 liters of water a day. So take the use of every Canadian every day for 10 years. That's how much water that's vanished from Lake Superior.
There's a lot at stake here. 33 million people live around the lakes and have prospered on its shores. The dropping water levels are already affecting everything from fishing to the big lakers that carry cargo. As the water drops, ships are forced to lighten their load, costing them millions of dollars. On the far western tip of Lake Superior, new clues are now emerging about why the lake is dropping so fast. It appears this huge body of water is a victim of climate change.
Superior seems to be responding more sensitively to climate change than we had initially expected.
Jay Austin is a professor at the University of Minnesota in Duluth who studies how climate change affects large lakes. He's taking water samples, testing everything from the water quality to temperature. This lake stretches right into the American Midwest, an area that's really affected by the changing climate.
The upper Midwest is warming relatively quickly compared to the rest of the globe. Lake Superior is warming faster than that.
Austin is tracking the winter ice that forms like a massive frozen jigsaw puzzle on Lake Superior. Warmer temperatures mean less ice is forming, and that means more water is evaporating during the winter. And that dry winter wind blowing over open water is a key point.
It's like blowing on your soup, essentially. And not only are you cooling off the soup, but you're evaporating water out of it. The same thing with the wind blowing across Lake Superior. When we have strong winds blowing cold air over the lake, we end up with more evaporation. Tend to have stronger winds in the winter, so that leads to higher evaporation as well. There's maybe 50% as much ice now forming as was forming 25 or 30 years ago.
That's quite dramatic.
It is a remarkable change.
To make matters worse, there have been 7 years of drought. It's dried up the rivers that nourish the lake. It hasn't been this bad around the lake since before 1900. All this results in a nasty coincidence of less water going into the lake at the same time that more is being dried out by winter winds.
It's a vast change in the 14 years that we've lived on Lake Superior. And so Gary, the winter you went out to actually ski across the lake. It was frozen right across in the early 90s. I don't think we'll ever see that happen again.
I've never seen fall colors this early in the season, and the river is down so low on this side of the lake.
Waterfront homeowners can't believe that climate change can take their water so quickly. They're convinced that something else is going on. Dave Edgar moved to his home on Batchewana Bay near Sault Ste. Marie about 20 years ago. Back then, the lake lapped right up to the edge of the dock.
Well, our water is disappearing, quite frankly. Actually, it's been in a decline for quite a number of years, but we've had a real drastic decline last fall between September and October, where the water dropped 13 inches in a matter of 32 days.
So can you see it over there? Can you show me?
Oh
what's
yes, I
happening?
can show you on the
Okay.
measuring stick that I have
right.
here.
Normally, what would this be like here?
Well, normally you'd be up to your waist here in water right now, and you're barely just past your ankles. Most years, I've always brought my boat in here with the motor down, and I had 4 to 4.5 feet of water to maneuver through. But now I can't bring my boat here any longer because I only have 1.5 feet of water.
So show me how much it's dropped in a year then. Just show me on.
Okay, well it would have been up here, and it's dropped down to here. So
When it dropped that dramatically, I mean, what did you think?
I thought, who pulled the plug on the bottom of the lake? Quite frankly, I couldn't believe it. It was dropping that quickly. I mean, you could almost see it.
How could it happen that fast? It's almost as if somebody pulled the plug from a drain and down went your wire.
Who pulled the plug?
There can be an enormous amount of evaporation from the lake
It's a
surface,
question that's been
particularly
echoing around the shores of Lake Superior all year. It's the reason people crammed into public meetings at Sault Ste. Marie this summer demanding answers.
I would like to know what was happening prior to last fall in the Great Lakes drainage basin that caused the Lake Superior shoreline to migrate 100 meters out in a 3-month period.
From last fall to today, we're down about 24 inches. Any explanations on that?
If you look at the weather, that's the explanation. We can't control the weather. People have asked
They
me, is
just
climate
don't
change?
buy the explanation that all
can't
that
say
water
for
is
sure.
gone because of climate change,
There are,
because it's happened so
handful
fast.
of small
On the hot
diversions
seat,
on
officials from both Canada and the U.S. who jointly manage the water levels of the Great Lakes. People came away from that meeting feeling they just weren't getting enough information.
People are becoming suspicious and saying they'll not tell us the truth. They're not giving us a straight answer.
Other than evaporation, the only other way water can leave Superior is by flowing downstream into Michigan, Huron, and down into Lakes Erie in Ontario. But there may be a problem here at the bottom of Lake Huron that's affecting Superior. The theory is the St. Clair River is draining water out of Lake Huron much faster than it used to. It's gotten deeper, possibly because of erosion and dredging.
No one even recognized that the river could be incrementally getting deeper. But evidence is indicating that the erosion is causing Lakes Michigan and Huron to drop about 1 inch every year because the erosion is increasing over time.
Is that a lot?
That's fairly significant. It is really.
Hydrologist Roger Gauthier is with the Great Lakes Commission. He sees a direct link between Superior's low levels and the problems downstream.
Since Lake Superior elevations are related to Michigan and Huron, it has influenced Lake Superior in terms of bringing it down quicker.
So even though you have the St. Clair River hundreds of kilometers away, it has a direct effect on Lake Superior.
Yes, it does.
And the larger the outlet at that river, the more water comes out of Lake Superior.
You can track it 1 for 1 in terms of that correspondence. If you're losing water in Michigan and Huron, you will be taking more water off of Lake Superior.
If we were here 8 or 9 years ago when water levels were close to the long-term average, that area out there that sees all those purple blooms would have been open water.
Property owners on Lake Huron's Georgian Bay are sure their water's disappearing because of the St. Clair River, and they've collected their own evidence to prove it. They're using this view of weeds that used to be water to push for action before it gets worse. Members of the International Joint Commission from the U.S. and Canada have just launched a study, and they've come to have a look. This group of influential homeowners, headed by Mary Muter, has become a thorn in the side of the Commission, pressuring it to include the St. Clair River in its new 5-year investigation. But she says they don't want to wait that long for action.
Why not do something now? Why not at least stop the erosion and start to design mitigation structures? We know that could be done within 2 years. Why do we have to wait for 5 years for yet another study to be done?
The Canadian head of the study, Ted Usick, is a hydrologist with decades of experience. He knows these lakes go up and down on a 30-year cycle and won't be rushed until he figures out what's going on.
You know, you'll have periods of high waters. And in the Great Lakes in the mid-'80s was the historical highs. All those waters, all those docks were floating away 20 years ago, and everybody was concerned, you know, from that. So we recognize that there is extremes. This is an extreme period.
We are going to lose beautiful, cold, natural water.
Right now, the only
Do something now was echoed on the American side of Superior at another public meeting this fall. People are increasingly unsettled by changes they can't control.
We're going to feel suspicious.
The Canadian head of the study, Ted Usick, is under growing pressure to do something right away.
Everybody wants a solution to something, and we can't change Mother Nature overnight. And this is where it becomes this frustration there that somehow, you know, you can change this.
Despite the outcry, Commission members are taking this one step at a time. Their first job is look at the gates that control water flowing out of Lake Superior and to install new equipment to track how much water is leaving. Because, believe it or not, they don't exactly know.
We don't have accurate measurements of the water leaving. We have estimates which are plus or minus 5–10%, and so that's one of the things that's very important for us, is to have a really accurate measurement, and that's why we're looking at putting in a station there, so that it is a check that all the science that is going in is adding up to what we are measuring.
On Batchewana Bay, winter is just around the corner, and the water is expected to keep dropping. Predictions are this is just the beginning. That as climate change continues, by mid-century, Superior won't freeze at all. It could lose more than double the water it's already lost. Dave Edgar is wondering just how low his water will go.
When we have something as huge as Lake Superior, which impacts so many people and so many different things, I think it's an emergency situation that needs to be looked at as quickly as possible. I wonder if I'm going to be looking across the bay at water, or am I going to be looking across to my neighbor's dry land?
Questions for a future where Lake Superior's vast depths can no longer be taken for granted. For CBC News, I'm Margot McDermott on the shores of Lake Superior.
In the last 2 months, torrential rains ended a 16-month drought in the region, and Lake Superior's water levels have risen a bit, but its vast depths can no longer be taken for granted. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching.